Hello and welcome everyone. Absolutely delighted to have each and every one of you here and looking forward to a fabulous conversation on coaching certification. We'll be discussing information on coaching, what's happening with the coaching profession, and then we will dive specifically into both pros and cons of coaching certification and also do a solid overview of the program offered at the Center for Coaching Certification. Because you are investing your time here with us, I want to return that. And at the end of our call today, I've got something for each and every one of you. So let's get started. The agenda, where we're going today, we are going to define coaching. We'll talk industry statistics and insights. We'll discuss the Center for Coaching Certification Staircase to Success coaching model and process, a great overview of how the coaching relationship works, and then a specific process in terms of coaching sessions. We will talk pros and cons of certification. Of course, I'd love to say it's all pros, and the reality is, yeah, there are cons too. We'll get into reasons people choose certification at the Center for Coaching Certification. We'll talk about what to look for in a training program wherever you go. We'll discuss opportunities in terms of coach training and then overview the programs offered. So first off, the definition of coaching. And I love how powerful the language is in this definition. It comes from the International Coach Federation. I will give you more information on who they are in just a moment. So check out the words. Coaching is a strategic partnership. Okay. Strategic partnership, that is different than other professional relationships. Think about it. In a typical professional relationship, the professional is considered the expert. They're the ones who are saying, hey, here's what to do and how to do it. In coaching, that's not the case. It's truly a partnership because ultimately the client is their own best expert. It goes on to say that the coach empowers the client, so the client is the one who clarifies their own goals, creates their own action plans, moves past their obstacles, and they achieve what they choose. So it is truly focused on empowering the client. Think about it this way. How many times have you given somebody advice? And let's say it was really great advice. It really was the good answer. And they even said that to you. And then they failed to follow through on it. And you're going, okay, how come they're not doing it? Well, the reality is this. It was your idea instead of theirs. You see, when people figure out their own answers, they own the answer. They follow through on it. That's where you're going to get results. Coaching takes more time, skill, and patience than telling the answer, and coaching gets results. So let's dive in further. First off, the International Coach Federation, the source of that definition we're looking at. Good to know about it. It's a nonprofit. It is a coaching professionals organization, so it's a membership organization. They are the gold standard in terms of coaching and what it takes to be a coach. They provide a code of ethics for coaches, and it's very, very important for each and every person that does coaching to be compliant with that code of ethics. And ironically, what happens is until you get trained on it, you really don't know what it is and how it works. Members of the International Coach Federation are accountable to that code of ethics. So for example, somebody hiring a coach increasingly is aware, hey, we want to make sure they're part of the ICF because they know what that means. They also have standards. They approve training programs. And they have standards for membership. They want 60 hours of training before you can become a member of the organization. And above and beyond the training, they also offer credentialing. And some of you submitted questions ahead of time. One was asking about this. So let's pause for a moment and answer that question. So first off, in terms of the membership, equate it to getting your degree. When you say, I'm a member of the International Coach Federation, it's like saying, hey, I have my degree in coaching. That's the analogy. Credentialing then becomes getting a master's degree or doctorate degree. It's an advanced level. So that's how you can compare and understand the two. So membership in the ICF is based on having 60 hours of coach training. And it's very specific in terms of what training counts for that 60 hours. Credentialing, in addition to the training hours, will require that there are paid coaching hours. It will require that you have mentor coaching hours, and then it will also require that you take an exam. The Coach Knowledge Assessment is the name of that exam. Now, I'm getting a question about BCC. So here's what I'll share with you. There are many different organizations that are similar to the International Coach Federation. The good news is they do collaborate with each other. They all work together, talk together, etc. The reason we put the International Coach Federation up here is because on a global level, they are the largest in terms of membership, in terms of countries they're in, etc. So when you're thinking about something like a different organization, the BCC, etc., as far as the International Coach Federation goes, you're going to have a very similar processes and concepts in place. They do all work together. So great question there. All right. Now, in terms of companies who use coaching, you've got a couple of things going on. Many companies are starting their own internal coaching programs, and then of course many companies hire coaches. Now the reason behind that, Right Management put this quote out: 86% of companies use coaching to sharpen the skills of individuals targeted as future leaders. That's huge. Coaching is this wonderful benefit. It's a talent development tool in organizations, and it's increasingly used because it works. Here's another one. Denison Consulting, looking at organizational development, said coaching is now the tool of choice for leaders and emerging leaders. So when you're doing organizational development, coaching is definitely a go-to, and that's so significant, so important. All right, continuing on. Coaching as a profession. It is the world's second fastest growing profession, and that is rivaled only by information technology. So think about it. IT, yes, computers fastest growing. Coaching is the second fastest growing. So fascinating. Okay. Fortune magazine, and when they put this article out, based on what I'm getting from it, it's clear that they're looking at various research studies on coaching and the return on investment. And ultimately, what they came down to is companies are getting a return on their investment of about 6 times what the coaching costs the company. So 6 times the return on investment. That's huge. When you think about that, you start wondering, how can companies afford not to have a coach working with their CEOs because of that return on investment? It just is making sense. Harvard Business Review also publishes lots of information on coaching. And here's an example. They say, okay, if a company is going to hire a coach, how do they use that? How's coaching applied? So here are the reasons they'll bring in a coach. 48% of the time, their reason is to develop high potentials or to facilitate transition. So lots going on in terms of leadership, change, etc. And that's the number one reason they'll bring in coaching. The next one, and I love this one, it's to act as a sounding board. So you see that 26% of the time. When you really think about it, this makes a ton of sense because executives at the top level inside the organization benefit by having somebody they can think out loud with, that they can bounce ideas around, someone who challenges their thinking and expands their thinking. So that's hugely significant. 12% of the time, it's to address a derailing behavior. Now, here's something that's interesting. Sometimes people think this is a negative. Okay, let's switch that thinking up. Bottom line, when you have coaching, it's an investment. And when you have coaching, it's because you want that person to stay. So when you have somebody who's a great individual, they're a great leader, they're really good, and you want to keep them, and there's simply something getting in the way of them being as effective as they can be, it makes sense to bring in a coach so that they can truly be as effective as possible and you maximize the result you're getting. So these are the most common reasons companies bring in coaches. Now, what's interesting is that when they do, 76% of the time, personal issues get addressed. And every once in a while, I'll have somebody say, personal things, well, this is supposed to be about work and the job. Okay, absolutely, and that's the primary focus. Now, think about it this way. If somebody is dealing with health issues, relationship issues, financial issues, whatever else it is, that comes to work with them. And the fact that they get to address it in this coaching relationship means they truly are focused on the job when they're there. So that's a powerful awareness. Let's look now at the reasons individuals hire a coach. So first off, career coaching, very, very common reason. And it makes a lot of sense. People graduate from college and they're launching their careers, or they're mid-career, they want to change directions, or somebody really wants to be intentional and refine their career path and advance it. So whatever the reason, having a coach is a powerful tool in terms of advancing a career. Another big reason is business management. Very often you have people that are really good. They're awesome at the product or the service, and their challenge comes in terms of how they manage the business, whether it's managing growth, sustainability, scalability, saleability, managing their people, or interacting with their customers, business growth and marketing. Having a business coach, again, a powerful tool. Now, interesting, on a personal level, self-esteem is a big reason for having a coach. And again, when we think about it, this makes a lot of sense. For most people, when we say, what's your number one barrier? What's getting in your way? The response is, gosh, look in the mirror, it's me. We hold ourselves back, and very often it's tied to self-esteem. Fear of failure, fear of success play in with that as well. And then work-life balance. We're used to that buzzword. It's been around for a long time, and it's every bit and even more true now as ever. We are working longer, doing more with less, and we're challenged to balance that with how much time or energy we have for the rest of our lives. So, big reason for a coach. Okay. Let's go back into, we know it's popular, we know it's the fastest growing profession, and we've seen a taste of the impact. Let's dig into that more. I think the most commonly cited research study on the return on investment for coaching is Manchester Inc. Now, of course, there are many, many more studies out there. Metrics Global is another commonly cited study. The Fortune magazine article I mentioned, they probably looked at the different studies, and I'm guessing this is one of them. So the Fortune magazine said 6 times, 600%, Manchester Inc., 570%, look at Metrics Global, et cetera, et cetera. So that average return on investment for every dollar spent is huge, because companies want to know when they invest in something, they're going to get their money's worth out of it. And that's one of the key reasons it's growing so fast. Now, another interesting study looked at productivity in the workplace. And a common go-to has been training. And training will increase productivity 22.4%. That's pretty exciting. Now, combine it with coaching, and you get an 88% improvement in productivity, 4 times the result. That's amazing. Think about it. What does this mean to organizations? Yeah, having coaching programs makes sense. It's absolutely an opportunity for improving, for increasing success, etc. Now, another great question, is coaching eventually going to be licensed? So bottom line, everything we're looking at in terms of any profession out there, professions either successfully self-regulate or government steps in and regulates them. It's in either or. So think about it this way. Hundreds of years ago, you didn't go to medical school to be a doctor. You just said, I'm a doctor, and started being a doctor. Well, that's different now, right? So you go to medical school. Mental health professionals, years ago, there was nothing. And now, yes, there is very specific training and licensure for them. Now, there are also many, many professions that are self-regulated. Think about the Financial Planners Association. Think about even the Bar Association and what they do with attorneys. Think also about organizations like SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, or ATD, the Association for Talent Development, to name a few. These are organizations that are self-regulating in terms of the profession. So coaching will either self-regulate or it will be regulated. There are a lot of government action in terms of looking at coaching, looking at legislation, etc. The International Coach Federation is working very hard on self-regulation, and my hope personally is they're successful, because you're going to have a better product in terms of the quality of the coaching when we self-regulate. I do know, for example, when I went and took out insurance as a coach, I was asked if I was a member of the International Coach Federation, and in many cases when I'm signing agreements with clients, they want to know I'm part of the International Coach Federation. So that's all very, very significant insight. Again, a great question. All right, let's keep going. When somebody does hire a coach, how do they decide who to hire? Well, they want 2 things: experience in a similar setting and a clear methodology. So experience in a similar setting, that's what you already have. You have your education and you have your work experience. You come to the table with that. When you look at a coach training program, that's where you want a clear methodology. In other words, knowing what you're doing as a coach. So let's dive into both methodology and process. So first off, methodology, it's understanding the coaching relationship. And consider it this way. The analogy is going to be a staircase. So if you're going to build a staircase, when you do that, the first part you build is the framework for the stairs. And so the coaching is just like that. What's the framework? Well, in the case of coaching, the framework is your training as a coach, it's your competency as a coach, and it's your ethics as a coach. That's the framework. Once you have your framework in place, then you start adding your steps. So the first step in the coaching relationship is having an agreement. Now, where does an agreement come from? In part, it's the verbal conversation, talking about what coaching is and isn't, explaining what the ethics are, etc. And then that gets put into a written agreement that both sides sign. So you're signing, agreeing to how this coaching relationship works, the parameters of it, and ideally including a link to your code of ethics or flat out the full copy of it. Then the next step in your coaching relationship is understanding. It is incumbent on the coach to understand the client. Who are they? How do they think? How do they process? How do they function? How does the coach adjust the coaching process to the client specifically? And of course, understanding what the client wants out of that coaching relationship. From there, your next step is developing rapport. That's creating trust and intimacy in your coaching relationship. So the number one indicator of success in a coaching relationship is rapport. Bottom line, when a client trusts the coach and they know they can really openly share and discuss and talk and explore your intimacy side of it, then you're going to be far more effective in terms of outcomes. Then it moves to communication. So how that process happens, it means the coach is really listening, hearing both what's said and what isn't said. It also means that the coach is clear and direct with their language and that they ask powerful questions. This in turn leads you to the next step of exploration, because the questions the coach is asking empowers the client for the exploration. They're exploring what they really want, what their priorities are, what their challenges or barriers are, how they're moving past them. And throughout that, they're developing their strategy. And they move specifically into, what am I going to do? What are the action steps that move me toward what I want? And as the coach and the client move up these stairs together, the objective, of course, is reaching that doorway called success. And success is defined by the client. So this is a model for the relationship. Let's look at the actual process for a coaching engagement. So first thing that happens very commonly in coaching is you have what we call an introductory session. It's 20, 30 minutes. It's a chance to test out the possibilities for the relationship. So part of it is the client gets a chance to know who this coach is, how they work, and what they do. And the coach gets a chance to say, hey, am I going to be a good coach for this person? Am I the right coach? And so you're exploring if this is a good fit. Now, once you do that initial introductory session, if the client says, yeah, this is working, and the coach says, yeah, this is working, then you move into the actual coaching engagement. You sign an agreement, and you have what we call the opening session. So often the opening session is a big picture exploration. What does the client want in all different areas? And then from there, how does the coach support client focus and client engagement in their own ongoing effort and ultimate success? Because it does take work on the part of the client. On an ongoing basis in the coaching relationship, the client will prioritize what they want to work on. They'll strategize, they'll develop their action plan, and the coach, of course, is partnering with them, checking on progress and success, and that continues throughout the coaching relationship. The average coaching relationship will last 12 months. What does that mean to you? Well, ultimately, the coach is working themselves out of a job, and that's a good thing with this particular client. What they do want to do is make sure they're supporting the client, empowering them in terms of their own strategy and action for the long term so that they maintain what they've achieved thus far and continue building on it. And then you have a closing session, a review of what was accomplished, etc. Now, of course, as a coach, we do keep the door open. You will find that clients often come back, sometimes 6 months, 12 months later, sometimes years later. They'll come back for additional coaching. So even though we call it a closing session, it's also letting them know, hey, the door's open. Now, in terms of certification itself, does it matter? Do we really have to get trained? A couple of you submitted questions on that, so let's explore it. First off, Harvard Business Review looked at this very question a number of years ago, and by the way, these numbers are changing over time. So when hiring a coach, 29.2% said certification is very important, want to know it's there. Well, at the same time, 28.5% said, not important at all. And then you've got everybody in the middle saying, oh, it's a little bit important, somewhat important. Yeah, it's important, it matters. 42%, some level of value assigned to certification. So what does that tell us? Of people hiring a coach, 70% of the time there's some level of value assigned to that certification. And as I mentioned, that number is changing. It's going up because bottom line, coaching being a young profession means it's been a bit of a buyer beware, and they're learning that. And so people increasingly know to request or require certification. So we're seeing that. All right. Let's dig into specific pros and cons of getting certification. And by the way, this is very much like anything you're going to do as far as a career. Do you want to get education for it or not? Think about whether or not you're going to go to college. It's the same concept. So on the con side, what are the most common cons? Time and money. Yep, absolutely. Just like when you go to college, it takes time and it takes money to get trained as a coach. That is true of any profession out there. And so, yeah, it's definitely a consideration. Those are our biggest cons. And on the pro side, well, first off, it's an opportunity for career advancement. So if you work inside of a company, the coaching skills start creating opportunities in different ways. So first off, there are many positions that do require or request coach training. I'll give you an example. ATD, the Association for Talent Development, now cites coaching as a core competency for talent development professionals. So anyone who's doing training or talent development. SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, cites coaching as one of their sub-competencies. So there are many professions that now include coaching as a skill set for that profession. Above and beyond that, think about it this way. If somebody is in a leadership role or in a role where they interact with other people, which is many, many different things, the bottom line is coaching is about people and communication skills. And so it supports their success in that role. It is also a business development opportunity. So people go into coaching as a business, whether it's part-time or full-time. And then additionally, you have many business professionals that having that coaching certification makes sense. So anyone that's in a consulting role is now looking at coaching as an additional resource and tool, applying coaching skills. So for example, we see financial planners take this class. We also see mental health professionals take it. We see attorneys take it. We see image consultants and other organizational consultants take it. So ultimately, it's a development, a further enhancement of what they are doing currently, and oftentimes it's an additional service that they're providing. So tons of opportunity that way. Now, when people actually choose a certification program, here are the reasons they've given us in terms of gee, this is what mattered to me when I chose this program. So number one, they really care about credibility. And we'll talk about how to identify whether or not an organization is credible. We also get a lot of feedback in terms of tools. So when you look at different coach training programs, what are the tools and resources that are offered? And in conjunction with that, what ongoing support is available? We also get a lot of people that take the program because of professional development. So in their position, they have personal goals or they're required to move forward in terms of their own professional development within their role. And so this is an opportunity for that. And then, of course, on the personal development side, it's amazing. It's kind of fun. I've had a lot of people who take the class say, wow, I wish this was required in school. It makes a lot of sense in that regard. All right, so let's dig into it further. First off, in terms of level of training, there are programs out there that are a few hours long. There are programs out there that take 10 years, and of course everything in between. So when you see a few hours, chances are it's lacking any kind of approval or accreditation or that kind of thing. When you see something as long as 10 years, chances are you're talking university level, etc. So very different in terms of length. Now, the International Coach Federation, we mentioned they require 60 hours to become a member. At the Center for Coaching Certification, we do that in two steps. The first is our 30-hour certified professional coach program, and the second step is our 35-hour certified master coach program. The reason we do it in two steps, actually a number of reasons. So first off, we do have a lot of people that are learning coaching skills because they're applying them on the job in other work that they're doing, etc. So instead of being interested in the full-blown, hey, I'm going to become a professional coach, they want the basic skill set to apply in other positions. We also have a lot of people that are testing it out. They're checking it out. Okay, I want to see if this is right for me. And a 30-hour program is going to be useful to them whatever they do, whether or not they decide to become a coach, and it's also a great way to test out coaching. In addition to that, for those who already know, yeah, I'm going to be a coach, that is where I'm going, doing it in two steps becomes a tool for you to manage both budget and time commitment because you choose when you take each one. All right. Location, where are the classes? So there are programs that are online, there are programs in specific locations. Depending on where you live, there may be something near you or you may be traveling. At the Center for Coaching Certification, we do programs in dozens of cities around the country, and we also offer the program where it's completely virtual. So your choice. Now, I do realize I have some international people on the call. Because the program is offered online, it makes it super easy for you to access it as well. So you can complete everything virtually, or you can do a blended version of the program where part of it's virtual and part of it is online. So it's your choice. In terms of cost, a program that's a few hours is going to be in that $400 range. A 10-year program is going to be in that $20,000 range. At the Center for Coaching Certification, we work very hard to be competitive and provide the quality. Our certified professional coach program is $16.95 and our certified master coach is $18.95, and we're really excited to be able to maintain that great rate for you. Now, whatever program you're looking at, make sure that all 11 of the core competencies are included and developed and addressed in your training program. This list of core competencies comes from the ICF, the International Coach Federation. So let's explore and go through these. First off, and by the way, the competencies are put into 4 different category areas. So the first category area is setting the foundation. And within that category, there are 2 competencies. One is pertinent to the ethical guidelines, so following the professional standards and ethical guidelines, that code of ethics that we have. And then the other is the coaching agreement, knowing how to have the conversation, and then of course signing the agreement with people. These are the competencies there. So how do you know that's covered in a training program? Well, in your training program, are you having a conversation about what coaching is and isn't? Are you given examples of agreements? Do you discuss the code of ethics? And we're saying more than just being handed a copy of the code of ethics, talking about what it really means, because in that conversation you find out what you didn't know. So very, very important. Make sure that's covered in your agenda. Co-creating the relationship, so trust and intimacy. Gosh, how do you develop that? So think back to that coaching model. Part of trust and intimacy is the coach understanding the client and flexing the process to them. And then in conjunction with that, you have coaching presence. Well, if a coach is focused on understanding the client and flexing to them, they are present. They're in the moment with that client. And it really is about the client and their process. The next category of competencies is under communication. It includes 3 competencies specifically. So active listening. And the irony of active listening, it's kind of funny if you think about it. Most of us say, yeah, I'm a pretty good listener. And then if you ask people, do you think others listen well? Most people say, no, not so well. Okay, so there's a bit of a disconnect there, right? What are the specific techniques that really make a difference in the coaching relationship and ensure there is active listening? Powerful questioning. Coaching questions are different than any other type of question out there. How we say what we say, how we ask that question absolutely changes conversation. It changes thinking. So it's incredibly important to ask coaching questions. Direct communication is about being clear, succinct, to the point, and also being respectful when we communicate. So again, about our languaging. The 4th category of competencies is creating awareness. Remember the exploration piece? And think about this, build on that powerful questions. So we adjust the process to the client. We ask these powerful questions. We listen to what they say and what they don't say, ask more questions, and the client is exploring. And through that process, they're becoming aware of different perspectives, different possibilities, different considerations for themselves. And then as a result of that, they're designing their own actions, the next competency. Now, of course, as a coach, it's very important to understand what is working for that client in terms of their action plan and what isn't working. So ultimately in that coaching relationship, the planning and goal setting really is that partnership in terms of how you're working and how you as a coach support the client in them moving forward. And coaching also means being an accountability partner, our 11th competency. And accountability is recognizing progress and success along the way, in addition to checking in on the follow-through. So whatever training you look at, making sure all 11 competencies are being developed. This is how you're truly developing your coaching skills. So in terms of credibility of an organization, the quality of the training, a couple of things to share with you. First off, look for that ICF approval. Make sure this coach training program has been checked out in terms of content, because ICF approval means they're looking for those 11 core competencies in the training program. So there's approved coach training programs, which means it's that step-by-step choice, the a la carte model, for example, our 30 hours, then the 35. There's also what they call an accredited program, and those are good as well. The difference there is it's all in one as compared to being the a la carte. That can be more expensive. as far as that goes. So very, very significant. Got a question in on this. Which of the 11 competencies are in the CPC and which in the CMC? All 11 in both, very specifically. So the program is completely designed around developing these 11 competencies in participants. We do it in the professional coach class, and in the master coach class we take it to the next level in terms of skill set and competency, and it's also great in terms of preparing for the coach knowledge assessment for people pursuing a credential. So all 11 in both programs. Great question. Thank you for that. Now, another thing we like to brag about at the Center for Coaching Certification is that we're accredited by IACET. IACET stands for the International Association for Continuing Education and Training. So whereas ICF is the gold standard in coaching, IACET is gold standard in terms of program design and delivery. So it is applicable to all different content areas. It's about how the program is put together and then given to you as a participant. So that's a great bragging point as well in terms of credibility. I will say we're unique in that regard. We are the only coach training program that is both approved by the International Coach Federation and also accredited by IACET, the International Association for Continuing Education and Training. On top of that, our program has been approved for 30 hours through HRCI, the Human Resource Certification Institute. So good to know for those of you pursuing professional development. And I do have people that are part of AICI, and yes, we are an approved continuing ed provider with AICI as well. So participants in the program, we see a lot of professionals. I think it's a lot of fun because it truly adds value to the discussion during class. We get a lot of professionals from ATD, the Association for Talent Development, a lot of SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management professionals, Financial Planners Association, NABO, an example of the small business owners. We get lots from there. AICI, the image consultants, ICF, because we are approved by ICF and members have continuing education requirements. We see lots of that. IACET, because people that are associated with IACET get what that means in terms of the quality of the program. We see a lot of mental health professionals, a lot of consultants, project managers, and ultimately people that have a passion for empowering others. That's incredibly significant for us in coaching. So who actually benefits from coach training? Well, that's what's so exciting about it. Whoever takes a coach training program is going to walk away with value add, whatever they do. People in any kind of a leadership role, trainers, of course, and educators, consultants, managers, HR professionals, project managers, service providers, business owners. It's a powerful tool, whatever we do, in all of our interactions. Now, in terms of specific career opportunities, let's look at this. We talked about coaching being beneficial in whatever your role is. Let's back that up with information I'm sure you've seen. The Gallup polls, this has been around forever, right? The poll of people saying that the number one reason they quit their job is because of a bad boss or immediate supervisor. People don't leave the company, they leave the person they're working under. And we hear that a lot. So what does that tell us? Well, think about it. If somebody's in that leadership role and they have coach training, they're learning people skills, they're learning communication skills, they're learning how to interact effectively, how to motivate others, how to empower them and support their goal setting and success. That's going to make a huge difference in terms of people being there. Business News put out this article. I think this is significant. In 2011, remember that was when the economy was just down, crash and burn stage. So At that point in time, 84% of people wanted to quit their jobs. I've seen more recent statistics that over 70% of people are actively looking for a different job. Wow. Yeah, they can't leave because they got to have that paycheck coming in. They want to. What does that mean in terms of engagement and productivity in the workplace? So back to the concept of when the boss, the manager, the supervisor, the leader is applying coaching skills, they start changing this because coaches partner, we empower people, we support their success, and that makes a difference. Now, as far as personal skill development, and of course this applies in that workplace situation as well, coach training is going to develop your communication skills, your listening, your language, your questions. It's also going to develop your people skills, recognizing and flexing to different personalities. And it's going to develop goal setting, an effective process for creating that change and motivating follow through. Well, think about it. Every single one of us gains from this in all of our interactions with people. As far as business opportunities, okay, if I want to put myself out there as a coach, what is the opportunity? So according to the ICF, the hourly cost for coaching ranges from $100 to $3,500, and the median is $500 an hour. So it does make a difference, by the way, what type of coaching. So for example, if somebody is doing life coaching, they're new in that area, they're typically in that $100 an hour range. If somebody is coaching executives, that median rate of 500 is a lot more typical. That's working with people at a high level in organizations. It calls on a lot of background and expertise, and of course extra time involved in working with the company as well as with the individual. So that's your typical range. Now that high end of that, if you're going to coach Oprah Winfrey or something like that, then you're looking at that kind of range. So most often what we're seeing for people look in that 100 to 500 range, depending on the type of coaching you're doing and depending on your background and experience. Now, as far as opportunity for getting out there and doing coaching, I love this. One coach for every 29,000 people. Wow, there's lots more room to have coaching. We've got lots of space for that. So in terms of as a business, it can be an add-on service with something you're already doing. We see that often with people that are in training businesses, people that are doing consulting work, etc. It is also an opportunity in terms of a part-time or full-time business. So a lot of coaches do this as an after career. They're semi-retired. We see people do it part-time on the side while they're developing their business. And then of course, it's a full-time business opportunity as well. So exciting in terms of where it goes. Let's talk about the program itself, exactly what it is and how it works. So first off, we're going to start with the Certified Professional Coach program, the first 30 hours. Whether you're doing a virtual class or in one of the locations around the country, we start with a series of live online classes. The main difference between what you're in right now and our actual classes, first off, you will get to know each other. That means everybody's live. So you're talking, you're asking questions, you're answering questions, you're participating in the discussion. So that's ongoing. You actually see the list of who's in class with you, so you'll have a list of the names and you'll be talking with each other. It's a lot of fun. It's very, very interactive. The first class that we do is called About Coaching. We're exploring exactly what coaching is, what it isn't, and we also are going through the core competencies for a coach. There's a lot more depth and detail than what we're giving you here just in a very quick synopsis. So digging into that further. And then the question on, do we use GoToMeeting? So yes, we use GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar for the platform. So that's the same one you're in right now. As I mentioned, the differences are you will actually see the list of participants and you'll be unmuted, which means you'll be live. In this kind of conversation, unfortunately, we have to limit that because of the feedback, the sound, etc. Whereas in a class, it's a small group and we can manage that. So you are live either on your own microphone or you have the option of calling in if you want to. Our second class that we do is on ethics, and you will have a copy of the ICF Code of Ethics, and we'll do things like, hey, what does this mean to you? Or, hey, if this situation happens, what do you do? How do you handle it? And so we're going to talk about the application for you so that you literally are walking out the door going, okay, I heard some things. And by the way, we've had coaches who have been coaches for years and years, and they say, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. I hadn't thought about that. So it's a fun, dynamic discussion. Then we move into the class called Understanding Your Client, and we're giving you a unique and very specific tool that supports you recognizing how your client is thinking, processing, and functioning, and how to adjust to them based on that. So it's a lot of fun, a great discussion in class. We do recommend you come to that one ready to have a good time, laugh, and have fun with it, because we have a great time in that class. Then we move into communication. Really good specific techniques in terms of how you listen, how you say what you say, examples of language, tools for developing effective language, and then also questions. We talk about different types of questions and how to formulate powerful coaching questions. We move then into focus and motivation. So we talk about some great tools in terms of recognizing how the client is processing information, how to support them exploring further and expand their thinking, and how to really motivate their buy-in and follow-through in terms of what it is they do want. We talk about how to know when to ask additional questions and what's important when they are developing their strategies and action steps in terms of how they're doing it specifically. So it's a lot of great content. Great question here. Somebody said, why don't coaches need a college education? Well, let's think about that. Now, if I'm going to hire a coach, let's pretend I'm an executive in the C-suite, and some people say, okay, is that executive, can I, if I'm a, high school graduate, for example, and I want to go coach executives, is that executive going to hire me? No. They're going to look at my background and experience. Alternatively, if I'm a high school graduate and there are some kids in high school who are struggling with setting themselves up to have a successful high school career, because that in turn prepares them to move into college, do they like a coach who's a high school graduate? Absolutely. So it's about who they're coaching. Now let's go on a bigger scale. Think about it this way. Some of the biggest businesses were started by people without a college education. Think about, and you can name so many of them. Software companies, hardware companies in terms of IT. There's a lot of big companies out there where the highest level executives do not have a college education. And so is a college education pertinent? No. Is the experience, the ability of the coach to understand what the client is talking about and work with them based on that important? Absolutely. So a lot of it's going to be tied to the type of coaching that they're doing, and that is more significant in that regard. So sometimes a college degree makes a difference, and sometimes, frankly, it doesn't. It depends on the type of coaching, and it depends on the skill set of the coach. So that's a great question. Love that one. And it's a big conversation out there in the coaching space. Now, in the program, with each of the online classes that you take, For every online class, and they're all 90 minutes long, you also will have homework. It will take on average about 90 minutes as well. So the first couple of assignments will include some additional research on your part, and the remaining assignments will include practicing. So we're going to discuss specific techniques, tools in terms of working with different people, your communication, the motivation, etc. And we're going to have you practice those tools and techniques in conversations that you're having anyway, because bottom line, these are people and communication skills. So whether it's people at work, people at home, out with friends, these communication skills, people skills are helpful in all of our interactions. So you're going to practice them and you're going to write about the outcomes. Then we move into the coaching practicum. Now this portion of the program is either online or in a face-to-face setting. So there's pros and cons, and thank you for the question on that. So on the pro side of an online class where it's completely online, first off, it means you can attend from literally anywhere you are, as long as you have an internet connection, a computer with either a microphone or you have the ability to call into the number, you're in good shape. You can attend that class from anywhere. It does mean there's greater flexibility in terms of scheduling as well. An additional benefit to that, 80% of all coaching is done on the telephone. And there are a lot of reasons behind that. So in terms of the coaching practicum, it's very real because you're doing it online or on the telephone. So that makes a lot of sense for people. The face-to-face option, so if we do it online, it's 4 half days because in terms of online technologies, we find that's what works for people. If it's the face-to-face class, it's 2 days in a classroom setting. The pro to that, some people like that personal interaction in a training. It helps them with their learning process. So it really depends on your learning style and what's going to work for you. So you have either option. It's in that coaching practicum. Now during that practicum, here's what's going to happen. You're going to partner with people in your class. You're going to have a chance to coach. And it's very, very important, of course, that you get to practice what we talk about. You're going to be coached. Now this is incredibly significant because bottom line, if we're going to coach other people, it's important that we in turn are coached, that we're open and receptive to what that process is and how it works. You also get a chance to observe coaching. And of course, your trainer is right there throughout the coaching practicum, supporting what you're doing, answering questions, helping you, giving you tips, etc. So it's great. Then at the end of the coaching practicum, we have a case study. This serves as your final. So it's an overview from a very initial conversation with a prospective client all the way through some of the challenges that come up. And so that case study is a great overview and serves as your final. Then after certification, we have lots of things available to all of our graduates. Among those, we do have a coach login page. And on the coach login page, tons of resources for you. For example, different examples of coaching agreements that you can pull from. We have all kinds of business builder tools. We have different questions, etc. So a ton of great stuff. Amongst what's there is a 90-minute recording on the business of coaching and a 90-minute recording on marketing yourself as a coach. So for those of you that are doing this as a business, it's great. And then on top of that, every month we have a 1-hour Q&A call for graduates. We usually have a handful of people on it. You get to ask whatever you want to ask about business or about marketing in terms of your coaching. And this is true whether it's an internal coaching program inside of a company or you're doing it as a business independently or with others. In terms of maintaining your certification, the certified professional coach level, we ask for 12 clock hours of continuing education every 2 years. We actually provide 24 clock hours free. That's part of our ongoing support for you. So if you access at least 12 hours of what we offer for free, you're good. If you take anything through the ICF or the similar organizations, anything specific to coaching or any of the coaching competencies, we're going to accept that. And that maintains that designation. Now, for those of you who say, I do want to be a coach, I want to be a member of the ICF, etc., your next step is the Certified Master Coach program. This class is completely online. We do that because, number one, you're going to have participants from all over the world in the program. And number two, it really makes sense in terms of how it works for people, the function of it. The first class that we do is called Group and Team Coaching. And we do that first because part of the program is going to be actually being involved in group coaching. So we want to set that up and provide information on it right on the front end, and it's great. Then we move into all of the areas of competency. So we take those 4 different categories one at a time, and we talk specific do's and don'ts for each one of the competencies and explore further in terms of what that means and how that works. So they're very rich discussions in class. So the first category covers setting the foundation, which is your ethics and your agreement. So we'll talk about those competencies and dig into them. The second category is creating trust and intimacy in your coaching presence. So in the class on coaching process, we're talking do's and don'ts for those competencies and delving further into how you're setting up your process and what that means. Your next area of competency is under communication. So our next class is people and communication. And we get into, again, specific do's and don'ts for each of the competencies, and we delve further, have a richer, expanded conversation on what all of this means and how it applies. We move from that into creating change with confidence. So your fourth area category in terms of your competencies, including the awareness, including the action planning, designing, goal setting, and of course the accountability process. Then we also have a class on time and money coaching. You see, ultimately, when you're coaching people, different sensitive topic areas will come up. We'll use time and money as examples for this, and we'll talk about, hey, these are factors for everybody, whatever they're doing. And that's an example of really being open as a coach to whatever topic is going to make a difference to the client. Now, with each of these classes, your homework's actually split in half if you compare it to the professional coach class. You have part of your assignment due before class and part of it is after class. And it's really you going further, digging deeper into these content areas. We'll give you specific questions to answer. And of course, you want to use real examples, because the more you make it real for you, the more you walk away with in terms of having tools and resources for yourself as a coach. The practicum, gotta love it, because in this class it's awesome. A couple of things we do. First off, group coaching. So in addition to participating in the group coaching, one of the times you will actually be the coach for that group coaching. So you'll coach everybody else in the class as the group coach. So it's great practice. Now, in terms of the individual coaching, in this program we have you interviewing your classmates, and then you're part of the process in terms of selecting who you want as a coach. Then when you schedule your sessions, it's the coach, the client, and the trainer. That's it. So it's a lot of personal time in terms of what you get out of that coaching. Then you're completing the final report. And the final report is you writing about a coaching experience. So it's a great way, again, of recapping and summarizing what's happening. Then we have graduation. Now, with any training program, any class you take anywhere, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. All right, let's talk about next steps for you. So first off, when we started, I said I had something for you, and now I'm going to give that to you. I'm going to give you a free 30-minute session. Now, a lot of people like to use that as coaching, whatever you want coaching on. I'm also going to give you that time if you want to use it for Q&A or simply talking. However you want to use it, that 30 minutes is yours. Now, how are you going to access it? When we close out this program, I will send you a link to the recording of it on our YouTube channel. And in that email, I'll say, hey, if you want the free 30 minutes, just reply to the email and I'll send you a link to my calendar. And when you have the link to my calendar, you click on it, it takes you right into it, right online. You choose which day and time you want that 30 minutes. You put in your name and your phone number and you click all the way through, you're scheduled. So you get to pick that time and get yourself scheduled. Make that easy. Now, next step. The application on the Center for Coaching and Certification website is free in terms of completing it. It's great because it has you checking, okay, this is what's required to complete the program, and it also gives you a chance to tell us about you. And we definitely value that because when you're in a training class, we want to know you and we want to make sure we're working with you effectively and supporting what you want out of the program. When you do know which of the classes you want based on the schedule or the location, however you're choosing, the way to hold your place in that class is pretty simple. You're paying for it. So that's the process. I do want to open this up for additional question and answer time. Many of you have been submitting this in terms of as we've gone through, and I think I've built in a lot of those questions. A few of you submitted things ahead of time, so hoping we're good there. Now, a couple of more questions coming in. Let's see. In terms of the coaching session, so one of the things we have on our coach login page is recorded coaching sessions. The audio is there, and what you see visually is actually the note-taking. That is in keeping with 80% of coaching being on the telephone. So that's what you're going to get as far as the recordings we provide to people in the program. Somebody else okay, a couple more questions. So if you've just done the application and it's asking for the amount paying the certified professional coach program, is that $16.95? So you can just fill that in. Somebody else is asking, do we offer payment plans? So a couple of things. First off, because you're putting it on a credit card, it's very often it becomes your own option as far as how you're paying that. Alternatively, on a case-by-case basis, sometimes we can split it up into a couple of payments. You've got to reach out to us individually for scheduling that. So excellent. Let's see, I want to double check. I'm getting lots of thank yous in the question panel, so I appreciate that. Thank you as well. Definitely appreciate it. Seems like we've done a good job of covering your questions. So I look forward to being of further service. I will get an email out to you with a link to the recording on YouTube, and then also you can reply to that email if you want a link to my calendar to schedule that time. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the privilege of being an organization you're checking out. We definitely appreciate that and very much want to be helpful and of service to you. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.